What did you do with my limbs? Not very in the backyard. Did you freeze it first? No, I tried to freeze it.
The man speaking of these horrors with unsettling calm is Christopher Lee Takhvar. However, to the detective, it wasn't just a confession. It was the sound of humanity eroding in real time.
I showed me a knife. Unfortunately, I had a chainsaw on me.
Moments earlier, they had uncovered the mutilated torso of Robin Lee Upson, with her head and limbs missing, and her body dumped in a remote area. Critical pieces of evidence pointed straight toward Christopher. What follows, however, exposes a far sinister motive, unfolding into a chilling account of dismemberment, conflicting stories, and a confession that thrust the case into an even darker territory. On June 11, 2018, a casual hike in the Ocala National Forest took a horrifying turn. A passing hiker noticed vultures circling a pile of blankets hidden under a shrub. At first glance, he thought it might be a deer, but something about the way the blankets were arranged felt wrong. As he moved closer and the suspicion turned into dread, he placed a 911 call. Within minutes, detectives arrived only to realize they were stepping into something far worse than they could have ever imagined.
So this afternoon I seen the turkey buzzards and they were coming out.
They were in the
They were
area.
coming from that area and I saw the blankets. So
Okay.
I said, you know, it's been my understanding with them if it's something big like a deer. Or,
Right.
You know,
Right. How far back is it?
right into the left there. I washed it frequently.
Okay.
I lifted off the sheets with a stick.
Okay.
But I saw buzzards coming out.
Right over here?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can't help me on the legs of there, I cut too. Yeah, go ahead and call Major Cox. Oh yeah. There's a possible dismemberment. No. I'm not getting in there to do all that.
What detectives uncovered was beyond horrific. A human torso severed from its head and limbs. Even the officers struggled to comprehend the brutality before them. As they steadied themselves, investigators turned their attention to the surroundings, noting the scattered remains nearby. A Bud Light bottle, 2 rings, and a small circle of white stones, seemingly ordinary objects now tied to an unspeakable crime. But a single clue changed everything. A robin tattoo etched on the torso. A photo released online quickly led to the identification of the corpse as 63-year-old Robin Lee Upson, who had been reported missing on June 13, 2018. A search of her home in Bellevue, Florida revealed blood, bleach bottles, and evidence of a frantic cleanup. And when detectives began speaking to those closest to her, one person stood out: her daughter, Summer. And what she revealed pushed the investigation into a far more disturbing direction.
You and your mom, is it a close relationship?
Yes and no. I mean, a question that I've dealt with since this happened. My mother, this has happened to my mother before. She wasn't dead when she was found.
I read the newspaper. When she was younger, right? When she was 19, 18?
When she was 18,
Yeah.
19, and before she had me.
Right.
It was 2 weeks before my parents were to get married, and she went to go get her wedding dress, and I don't know the story behind it. Either she picked up a hitchhiker or he held a knife to her. From what I've heard, 2 different versions. Right. And she was not a very outspoken person. I'm more, I guess, headstrong than she is, because I'd be putting my seatbelt on and driving that car as fast as I could into a wall.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, she was taken, and they found, I was told 2 bikers saw her body or found her body, didn't want to be blamed, so they just called the police and left an anonymous tip.
Right.
And they took her, put her in the hospital, and she was under the name of Jane Doe because they didn't know who she was.
Right.
And then I was told Boy Scouts came across her car she had been beaten the head with a tire iron.
Summer shares critical details that help investigators make sense of Robin's behavior in the months leading up to her death. After surviving a previous near-fatal attack that left Robin with a severe head injury, she struggled to function independently as a disabled veteran. Inside the house, officers found abandoned animals, tree trimmings, and piles of debris scattered throughout, along with marijuana and drug-related paraphernalia, all signs of a deteriorating lifestyle. Together, the scene painted a picture of a household in disarray, raising urgent questions about what had truly been happening inside Robin Upson's home.
Quiet, but then he seemed like not
Reserved.
Yeah, reserved. That way. And then that was when we were at pizza. Same thing, pretty much kind of when we were at the house the last time. It wasn't so quite reserved. It was more like reclusive. He would go back into the room, come out, smoke or do something, and then go back into the room like he was.
He was a little more vocal, goofed around with the kids, and that when he would come out, more open, more friendly, than we was when we first met him.
Do you know if your mom and him were romantically involved at all?
I have no clue.
Upon being asked, Summer reveals that Christopher Lee Takhvar, a 43-year-old man who lived in Hawaii, was a longtime friend and business partner of Robin. He flew from Hawaii to Florida in May 2018, just days before Robin's disappearance. The detectives would soon link him to the events directly leading to Robin's murder. This was more shocking to Robin's family, as the man who used to live with them had done something so sinister that their life had changed forever.
I know it's really weird, but I have a letter that I want to write.
Mm-hmm.
It's not spiteful or hateful. I want to write it, put it in a Bible, and would you or somebody be able to give it to this individual? Because they don't have them.
Oh, yeah.
Apparently.
Yeah, absolutely.
And and that will help. It will help me heal, I think. And it's what I'm supposed to do, even though I don't feel that way right now.
Right.
But I need to.
Right. No, I
And that's what Chris wants me to do.
Yeah, I understand. If you have that with you, I'd be happy to lock it in my drawer. If it has something you want to send to me or bring to me before you leave, I'll lock it in the drawer. And when I'm with that person, then I'll be sure they hear it. Okay?
While searching the house, police discovered that 2 vehicles were missing: Robin's red and white Ford pickup and her mother, Lena Upson's burgundy van. Lena later told investigators that Christopher had borrowed her van and never returned it. She claimed that he and Robin had argued and that she drove off alone in her truck. Surveillance footage later captured the van at a local Walmart, allowing investigators to track Christopher. Additional video from an internet cafe showed Christopher parking the truck in a side car park during a heavy downpour. He was arrested on August 15, 2018 in Jefferson, Texas, and brought in for interrogation on August 20, 2018. But little did the detectives know that they were about to encounter a man so evil that this would be marked as one of the most inhumane cases that the state of Florida had ever seen.
There's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about. And I want to talk to you about Lena's van, obviously. Like I said, one of the things I want to talk to you about is the whole... First, you came from Hawaii to Belgium, right? What prompted you to go from Hawaii?
Robin needed help with her and with her and her parents, their chores and miscellaneous stuff that needed done around the house. Hopefully the mom told you I was very helpful around there and everything.
Yeah, no. Actually, she said you were very helpful.
And that's primarily why I went out there. And the reason why I bought the vehicle was I had done some tree cutting, and Robin got upset with me. I don't know if mood swings or what, but she got upset with me about cutting down the second tree. She wanted me to stop and have a professional come in. And basically, she, for lack of better words, told me that she wanted me to get out of the house. I mean, that's a polite way of putting it. I mean, she threw off the hand.
Christopher tries to manipulate the conversation from the very beginning. He presents himself as a friend to Robin, never causing anyone any harm. He tries to build an image of a good guy who is misunderstood. But the detectives would soon realize that behind this peaceful image of a good guy lies a story far more twisted than what appears on the surface.
I don't know if you know Robin's history, but she, if you're talking about the head injury, I'm aware of that. Just recently, she was on trial for assault on a police officer. And that was a friend that she had staying at her house, same situation as mine, and she threw him and his stuff out. So the next morning, after she had told me to leave, she wasn't around, so I went to the mom's house and I said, look, can I borrow your car? Robin's not here, truck's not here. I need to, do some chores and take care of my stuff. And basically, honestly, what I planned to do was go down to the airport and have, some friends wire me an airplane ticket, which never happened. I ended up taking Greyhound from Orlando, but that's basically what happened, and it's completely unfortunate. Robin's mom gave me permission via Facebook messenger. And so one of her last texts to me, because I remember I was still in Hawaii, and she said, you can use the car whenever you want when you're here. And I was like, cool, that kind of alleviates, because I already knew how Robin was. I've been coming down there for about 4 years, 3 or 4 trips in 4 years. The last trip before this trip, I installed French doors in her house, picked up some of my belongings. I had some tattoo chairs and some other possessions and stuff at her house.
He straight up starts laying facts about how dangerous Robin had been and what her past looked like, as if he already has a story rehearsed in his mind.
And that's when Ben was there. And was Ben the guy you were talking about before? Yeah, yes, sir. And Ben, I warned her. I said, look, this guy is no good. Unfortunately, I don't still have the instant messenger message, but I had told her, because I remember flipping through trying to find it, because I was trying to screenshot it so I could give it to her as evidence for her case. Right. But he had made a threat on me. What happened was I've done laser removal for people for like 10 years, and I do it free for people, hands and feet. Well, when I was down in Florida, when me and Robin had the shot, Ben had come around and he wanted to steam and lasered off his leg. And I'm like, oh, I got you, bro. Right. So I lasered this thing off his leg, and something happened where he got a hernia or something. He ended up in the ER. And the doctor saw the wound on his leg from the laser removal and basically told him he was going to need skin grafts. He was basically scarred for life, blah, blah, blah. And it's coming from a doctor, so he didn't understand. The doctor didn't understand. Correct. And so Ben came at me very, very hostile, very aggressive, basically threatened my life, told me he was going to cut my throat ear to ear. And, it scared me. I literally had no response. All I did was block him at that point. But I did forward Robin a copy of that message, and I was just... Is this on Facebook also? Or? Yes. Instant message, or the messenger, like the iPhone or something. No, through Facebook. Okay. I believe he was going by Benny Goodson, or Benny Blanco.
Christopher portrays Robin as a troubled woman surrounded by dangerous people, conveniently excluding himself from that circle. He constantly tries to convince the detectives that Robin was the main problem, not him. However, little did he know, the more he spoke, the clearer his own role in the chaos was about to become.
I was kind of forced to borrow the other vehicle, in my opinion, because I had no other options, and, you know, in the sense that, you know, in my head, Robin was willing to leave me out on the street, and it's raining outside, and it's horrible weather at the time. So I was just like, you know, I gotta, you know, kind of look out for, you know, my best interest at this point, and obviously that would be to just go back home with the wife, which didn't happen, unfortunately. So, you know, that's basically it, and, you know, I feel horrible that I, you know, didn't respond to the mom after, you know, she had her last text to me. She said she was calling the cops, and I'm like, what are you calling the cops for? You gave me permission.
And the way she explained it to me was she told you, yeah, that you went to her, said, hey, Robin's taking me out. She's got the truck. Can I borrow the van? And she told me, she told you, yes, just have it back to the dog.
Yes.
That's what she told you. And so when you left, I think she told me you told her you'd been in Leesburg, looking for a place to stay.
Yes.
And when you weren't responding to her and didn't bring it back, that's when she felt you had stolen it. And if where'd you leave the van?
Orlando.
Orlando. Right.
And I kind of panicked. After I couldn't get a plane ticket, and I only had enough money to get a bus ticket, I figured the best thing to do would just be leave the keys in the van, and, you know, and unfortunately I never made the call and said, hey, this is where your van is. I probably should have.
I left the keys on the door on the outside.
Christopher doesn't stop there. He continuously tries to justify why he took both vehicles. He states that he was forced to borrow the car in the same way he was forced to kill Robin. However, as the conversation continued, detectives began steering the focus toward the core of the case, his relationship with Robin.
More business relationship, more friendly, romantic, and what kind of?
It was a friend relationship.
Friend relationship. Okay. Was she content with that? Did she want more than friendship, or?
No.
Okay.
She wasn't content with it.
She wasn't content. Did she want it to go further than what it went?
Yeah, and she pushed that issue many times.
She come on to you, or just talk to you, or?
Probably a little of those.
Yeah. Yeah. You guys
Not
ever
really
romantic?
uncomfortable. What's that?
You guys ever romantic?
No.
But that's all.
And I made it very clear to the mom and dad that we were not a couple. I think she tried to convince them that we were, and I had to make that very clear to them.
You and Robin tried to get a tattoo shot done, didn't you?
We did.
Yeah. What was that called?
It was called, what was it called? Oh, Zen Tattoo. Basically, that was a nightmare in itself. That's where I met Robert. I think that's where she met Robert. We ran into place. I busted my ass at it all. I basically ripped out an entire kitchen in an ex-pizza place. So it's disgusting, a lot of grease, just hugely intense amount of work. I probably did $20,000 worth of work. Well, first one it's rent to do, Robin doesn't want to pay rent. And the agreement originally was Maui Wowie product would help suffice the cost of the rent and stuff. And unfortunately, we didn't even get our order till after the first month's rent was due. So that wasn't really even an option. I think even the third month's rent was due by the time, we were getting evicted, I think, by the time we even got product. It happens in shipping and manufacturing and stuff. Anyways, Robin threw a hissy fit and basically wrote the landlords and told them to F off. Then this is kind of crazy, so they locked us out, and they locked us out illegally. Right. And meaning they didn't give us any notice or anything. Right. And Robin kind of ordered me to get in the studio and retrieve the stuff. Right. And I had already loaded up our my chairs and all that stuff. The only thing that was really left was like the computer and the TV and some small miscellaneous stuff, but it still was enough. It was $1,000 or so worth of stuff. Right. And she basically ordered me to go in there and retrieve the stuff. So I, took a hammer and broke the window and unlocked it, reached around, unlocked the door and walked through and opened it and walked all the way through. She met me around the backside and loaded up the truck and we're gone. Right. Well, I guess they had me on camera and the detective came by and talked to me. It is what it is, but I mean, like I said, that's kind of why I wash my hands is like one incident after another.
Christopher presents this collapse as a simple fallout over business and personality clashes. But the longer he talks, the clearer it becomes that something crucial is being sidestepped. Because beneath the chaos, there is a financial link he hasn't accounted for yet, and detectives are about to bring it to the surface.
Were you indebted to Robert at all? Did you owe any money to her?
I consider we still owe her.
How much?
Well, the company still owes her. I believe the original loan was like $16,000, something like that.
Yeah. Is that where it's still at there? About $16,000 is what she was at.
Yeah, we had agreed that's
that'd be fair.
Yeah, I believe at some point it got up higher than that. Yeah. But I had come down and done work and whatnot, and at some point I had signed over basically not signed over, but released or whatever the control of the company to my partners, and they now have that.
The detectives are now beginning to see the cracks in Christopher's story. As they keep digging deeper, they are met with Christopher's own claim of him owing Robin $16,000, establishing a perfect motive. However, the detectives realize that there is still something even more disturbing hiding beneath.
Well, obviously, I'm not here just for a story. I'm sure you would think it'd be kind of unusual for somebody to fly from Florida to Texas to talk to you about a stolen thing.
I've seen some interesting things in my time.
Yeah. Okay. So, I'm working on homicide.
Okay, who's homicide?
Robin's. And because you're the last one that I can put with her, I need to really get information from you to see where I need to focus my investigation. And see if you have any clues as to what happened, anybody who may be involved.
Christopher shows little outward reaction upon hearing about the crime for the first time. At this exact moment, he realizes that the detectives have found his horrifying secret.
But I need you to be as upfront with me as you can about what happened prior to you leaving. So, Robin's mom is beside herself. Some of her and her kids are beside themselves. And they want some answers as to what happened to Robin.
Yeah.
And I'm hoping that you'll be able to give me some ideas. I'd like to be able to give them some closure so they can understand what happened. But I know with the truck, her truck, you had parked it at the Internet Cafe at 102 in Book 41.
I did?
the video showed that you parking it on the side parking lot, getting out in a downpour of rain, crazy rain, and then just walking away. And so I'm kind of curious because that would have been after you said Robin left with the truck. So Chris, I mean, this woman I know, mentally she would get lost sometimes. And you were busting your butt to help her out. Okay. Is that you saying you don't want to talk to you anymore?
The detective takes a direct evidence-based approach, laying out the facts and pressing for clarity. But the moment Christopher asks for an attorney, the dynamic changes. From that moment on, the conversation is no longer about extracting statements, but about navigating what can still be discovered. The interview doesn't stop, it recalibrates, and what follows reveals how pressure, timing, and psychology begin to have its own way of revealing what comes next.
Well, you want to hear what I have to say? It's totally up to you. If you want an attorney, then I'll hear what you have to say. Okay. I want to be able to give her some closure, her family some closure. Okay? And the only way I can do that is through you. And I've looked into you, I've looked into your history from as much as I can, without actually talking to you. And from what I can see, you look like somebody that's trying to do the best they can to make a legal buck. I don't see you out there robbing and stealing and trying to hurt anybody. I see you trying to bust fucking drug dealers that raise their families. Yeah. And I don't even get to see my kids. Yeah. You got 3 kids, right? Christopher, Krista, and Hannah Christina, right? Mm-hmm. Your kids? And so the big picture of what I see as Chris is a pretty decent guy. That's down on his luck, but busting trying to legally make a buck. And maybe saw an opportunity for something that was one day going to get him pretty rich, which I wouldn't blame anybody. Trying to make everybody rich. Yeah, right. Trying to get everybody to buy into this because he truly believed this was something that was going to flourish and benefit everyone. And I feel like something happened that was just totally accidental for Chris. And nobody can make sense of it. And that's why I came from Florida to Texas to talk to you.
The detective slows the pace and shifts into a rapport building, reframing the exchange through empathy rather than confrontation. By positioning himself as someone who understands Christopher's struggles, the pressure gradually eases. Christopher lowers the defenses and talks to the detective into the moment everything had changed. What follows isn't a denial or a theory, but Christopher walking detective step by step into the instant violence erupted.
I don't want somebody else filling in the blanks for Chris. I don't want him filling the blanks for Chris. I don't want to guess. I want Chris to tell me. Like I said, your mom loses no matter what. So after the second tree, your sister always started yelling at me. I was in the back porch, smoking a cigarette, in the break. Coming around and telling me, "Oh, you're no more." She got no shirt and a knife. Shooting a fucking knife at me. She got violent. Came in. Unfortunately, I had a chainsaw lying there. She came at you with a knife? So what happens when she comes and I said, "You have a chainsaw in your head"? Well, she defends herself. We wouldn't like that movie. Fortunately, it was an electric chainsaw. Swung me at the button. Where did the chainsaw hit? The arm and the neck. This is on the back porch. That would be weird. He was ending up in the living room at that point. So the chainsaw was on or it was off. It was on. It was on. It was electric. Right. So the battery got that. So they hit the button. It was automatically turned on. When they hit her neck, did she die right there? In that position in the living room? So what happened after that? I couldn't figure out how to fix it. So you said you had to find out how to fix it. So what did you do? What would you do? I don't know. I freaked out, Bob. I wouldn't have a clue. I'd probably be thinking the same thing you're doing. Oh my gosh, what are you doing? He's going to believe me.
What began as a rehearsed defense quickly turned into a chilling confession. Christopher now claimed that Robin had attacked him, and her death was an accident, some sort of twisted moment that somehow ended up including a chainsaw. But his narrative did not align with the evidence or logic. However, little does the detective know that this is just the very tip of the iceberg.
After she died, did you go to Walmart after that? Is that where you purchased the sawzall? And tell me where all that took place at the sawzall. Sure. Garage. What did you do with my limbs for we're going to use it. Sure. Someone asked you with a freaking knife, Chris. What happened? Go ahead. And buried him in the backyard. The torso. Don't believe me. Did you freeze it? Freeze it first? No, I tried to freeze it. I don't know what I was thinking, bro. I mean, I was freaking the fuck out, man. How'd you freeze it? Or try to freeze it? You freeze it. The freezers in our house, there's no way to put it torso. Yeah, no, I didn't freeze it.
Even now, instead of telling the whole truth, Christopher is trying to maneuver the situation. He used an igloo cooler to freeze the torso, then transported it using Lena's van. However, during the investigation, he says he does not remember exactly where he dumped that cooler. Also, as per the evidence, the white pebbles found around the torso earlier by the detectives were none other than salt that he had used to stop the bleeding, which later solidified into clumps. It was an unimaginably brutal plot that would soon unravel itself.
I have no doubt in my mind, Robin would have done something to those old people. They're not coming out with it. I'm not going to do it.
What's that?
I have no doubt in my mind Robin would have done something to the parents.
Yeah.
She was on her last.
I think that head injury she had when she was 19 really messed her up.
Yeah, my friend Mary warned me about that. I always treated her with respect. She had gotten violent with me several times.
Yeah.
Even this last time I was there, she got violent with me a couple times before that. Throwing fits. And I'm just like, dude, don't throw at me. Don't attack me. Just leave me alone. If you want to scream at me, cool, but you don't need to get physical with me. And I don't know, she just felt more empowered and she had a knife in her hand. It definitely threw me off. And the only thing I'm thinking is maybe this time she's really going to try and do something. I just kind of pushed away with chainsaw.
That's it. It's the green one, wasn't it? Have you met someone before?
I don't know.
What's that?
I don't want to talk to her.
Would you want to write anything to her?
What am I going to tell her?
Oh, no. The reason I asked is someone wanted me to give this to you. She bought this. She wrote it out. And she said, when you talk to Chris, would you please give us to I told her I would. Forgive you, because we're awesome, which is what she said.
Well, yeah. I don't think, if anybody's supposed to say, but I mean, obviously, just remembering your body was not very low. Right. But some coroners say they were going to. So I told her I'd give that to you on the side. So I said, thank you. I will. And that's why I asked, is there anything you want to write back to her, or anything you want me to tell her?
Christopher again tries to shift the conversation back to the real topic. He again tries to portray Robin as a dangerous woman. He claims he did not doubt what Robin would have done to old people and her own parents, making it seem as if he was trying to save all the elderly from Robin's torture. Christopher is booked into the Marion County Jail and transported to Florida, where he was interviewed one final time. What detectives don't yet realize is that this moment marks a turning point, one where Christopher abandons his earlier claims and begins telling a very different story.
What you told me about where I would find Robin, she was right where you said, obviously. Her phone was in there, like you said it would be. But I wanted to clarify more of how everything happened, how it was she came at you, because when you told me that she came at you with a knife, but I didn't get a whole lot of details about that. You told me that you guys, tell me again, I know you guys have been outside working on the trees, right? Was Robin out there with you working on it?
No.
Okay. Where was Robin while you were working on the trees?
In the house and going to and fro wherever she was going, doing her stuff.
Okay.
And she had gotten back, and
when you say got back, was she away from the house? Was she out running errands or something? Or?
I don't know. I was in the back doing the trees, so in between being in her house and going to her mom's house and back and forth and stuff. And she had come out. I was on the porch, and she had come like to the door and screamed at me that she didn't want me to cut down any more trees and blah blah blah. She was in fear for my safety or something. And
when you say came to the door, you're sitting on the back porch. She came to the door that leads from the house to the porch, or from outside, the door that leads outside into the porch?
No, the house to the porch.
Right.
And she had went back in the kitchen, and I'm pretty sure she was in there sharpening the knife at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I figured, well, might as well just start cleaning up. So I had grabbed the chainsaw, and I had walked inside with the chainsaw, and she was still kind of upset. And I had walked past her, and then she was on the corner of like the kitchen and the dining room, and she had the knife in her hand, and she just kind of spazzed out and started screaming at me again, and had turned around, and I still had the chainsaw in my hand. And before I came into the house, I had checked the battery,
mm-hmm.
but I had hit the start button instead of the battery button.
Right.
And
is there like a battery test button? Or
yeah. There's a battery test button, and there's a start button. And I do believe I hit the start button. Obviously, I did instead of the battery button, which they both beep. So it let me know that it was charged. So I was like, well, I'll just go put it away.
Christopher remains consistent with his narrative that this was just an accident, but it's now that the contradictions start to pile up. During the last interrogation, Christopher claimed that he swung the chainsaw in self-defense, and now he claims he accidentally pressed the start button of the chainsaw instead of the battery button. What comes next is Christopher's version of the moment everything went wrong.
And I was going to the garage to go put it away, and she was over here, and I was over here.
Where's over here?
Kind of on the corner of, like, in front of that, there's like a little, it's not a hutch, it's like a little shelf cabinet thing. It had, like...
In the living room?
Yeah, okay. In the living room area. And that was about where I had stopped where I was walking. I had turned around, and that's about where we had a confrontation. She had turned and whirled around, and she was screaming at me, and she had a knife in her hand, and all I did was kind of put my arms up with the chainsaw. All I saw was the shine of the knife coming at me, honestly. Okay. And I had heard her sharpening it. Right. It was, I don't know if it was a hobby of hers, but I mean, she sharpened her knives very frequently. Right. And, you know, so I already had that in the back of my head that you know what I mean? You know, and they're fucking with their knives again, you know. Right. And, you know, so when I went to obviously push her arms away with the knife, you know, the chainsaw went off. And then at that point, somewhere, I mean, obviously, it was very fast, very, very chaotic, in my opinion. But at some point, we ended up on the bed. Right. And, you know, at that point, you know, obviously, you know, her life had ceased to exist. It's kind of grossing me out just thinking.
I'm sure it's haunted you. I don't doubt that.
I mean, like I said, if you guys don't believe it was an accident, that's on you guys, bro. You know what I mean? I know in my heart what happened, and I already feel bad enough for my part in trying to hide a horrible accident. You know what I mean? And I can't really do anything about.
Was your plan to bury her torso originally?
There was no plan, sir. Okay. I know she was sharpening a knife. There was a knife on the bed when it was said and done. Mm-hmm. And, you know, other than that, you know, I'm just horribly sorry that you know, I should have. You know what you should have done? Left.
You should have just called. I mean, you should have.
No, I should have just never went to there from Hawaii to help her.
In the end, the evidence was clear. Robin Upson had been killed, her body dismembered, and her killer's traces were skillfully hidden. Although Christopher Lee Takhvar confessed, his account remained inconsistent, leaving investigators unable to definitively establish whether the killing was financially motivated, accidental, or an act he claimed was committed in self-defense. Finally, on May 23, 2019, he was convicted and sentenced to life in prison. He was found guilty of second-degree murder and grand theft of a motor vehicle in the murder and dismemberment of 62-year-old Robin Lee Upson.